Thank you for joining the Advocator Podcast. The goal of the Advocator Podcast is to be your advocate. We will do this by bringing you stories of those who have come before us and can help us in our everyday life and business. Our guests will be business owners, industry leaders, and folks that we can generally learn from and save ourselves a significant amount of personal pain by following their lead. On today's episode, we are joined by Don Gelestino, President and CEO of Champion Elevator. Champion Elevator is one of the largest elevator companies in the Northeast, servicing over 6,000 elevators. On today's episode, Don shares with us how he actually got started in the music business and backed into the elevator business. He's also going to share with us just how fortunate he has been and how passionate he is about giving back to those that can help others in the way that he has been helped in his past. And Don's also going to share with us how his first job in the third grade really shaped just how he is today as a leader. Please enjoy today's episode of the Advocator Podcast. We are joined today by Don Gelestino from Champion Elevator. Don, thank you for being on the show today. You're welcome for getting the time together today. Talk to me about who is Champion Elevator, what does Champion Elevator do, and where do you do it?
Yeah, so Champion Elevator is a full-service elevator company. We currently service over 6,000 elevators in New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. We're a full union shop. We do anything from a two-stop elevator to a 60-story group of elevators.
How did you get into the industry? What made you kind of start and found, Champion Elevator?
I told my parents that I'm going to go to New York and become a rock star. And I left with a little bag of clothes, $21, and a bass guitar. And I used to walk around going to bars and clubs and knocking on doors, asking if people needed a bass player. And people would look at me and say, "Hey, kid, I'm doing the inventory here," or "I'm a bartender, I'm doing a beer, get out of here." I really didn't know what I was doing. I did land a little gig where I was playing at a club, and the bouncer of the club liked to hang out with the band. So these two brothers automatically became my friends. And what they did was they invited me to come live on their couch. The third month into me living with these guys, sleeping on their couch, they woke me up one morning and said, "We need a helper, and you've been here for 3 months and you haven't paid any rent." And I said, "Oh, well, these guys are telling me they need me. I better go to work with them." So I said, "What do you guys do?" I said, "I only know you was a bouncer and you was a guy that could really drink about 4 6-packs in an hour." So they said, "Our father owns an elevator company." I didn't know really anything about elevators. I remember my first thought was, an elevator the one that moves like a stairs or it goes up and down? It really was disengaged. I went there and I worked with them for a day. And I loved it. And I was kind of impressed that I could actually even be in an elevator machine room, as a novice, someone that never even looked at any of this equipment. So I said to them, "If you want me to come back, I'd be glad to come back." And sure enough, that was my first day of what now is a 38-year consecutive career.
Thanks for joining the Advocator Podcast. Stay tuned for more on how Don from Champion Elevator enjoys helping other businesses, how he has found ways to invest in safety, culture, and the people of his company, and how surrounding himself with mentors has helped him, and how he's grown his company so quickly.
And I went in that position started me out as a helper. Then I became a mechanic, then a foreman, troubleshooter, supervisor, then an engineer. And eventually, after working with that company for 7.5 years, I went out and started my own company, which was called Vertec Elevator. And I had a partner, and that company was amazing. We grew it. It was a big company in New York. And I started in 1993, and I sold it to United Technologies in 2010. My partner and I, it was just kind of time. He was kind of looking to retire. even though after we sold the company, he went right back into business. I went back into business. We say we want to slow down, but some people just don't stop no matter what happens. So I sold that company. I went to work for United Technologies for 3 years. I still had 2 years left on my no-compete. So I did anything I could do without breaking my no-compete, because at that point, really, everything I did was elevators. So I actually built a car wash in Long Island. I helped a bunch of startup businesses. I would build cash flow forecasts for entrepreneurs that wanted to start up, and I would kind of help oversee that and get them up and off the ground, and it was pretty successful. And then when my no-compete was up, I waited 24 hours from the no-compete date and started Champion Elevator, which was September 2015. And now it's, we're almost in our 10th year, and we're a great company, 240 employees, and over 6,000 elevators. I love being able to help people and give advice, and, you know, I do it in a way where, you know, I have no college. You know, I learned everything, you know, I don't know, my father used to say you got to learn everything the hard way. You might have been right, because I think I learned everything the hard way. But the reality is, you know, when you're teaching and just sharing what you've done with people that are about to do something like that, not necessarily the elevator space, it could be any other type of business, you may throw 2 or 3 sentences out there that could save somebody years of extra work or a lot of hard times or a little bit of aggravation, and as well as, you know, give them an opportunity to make a little more money than they would have just doing it without any guidance. So that's very rewarding. When I hear and heard feedback, and it was good feedback, it was like, I'm telling you, I'm a cup of coffee a day guy. I didn't even need a coffee. I was fully energized by just hearing the good stories of people. And hey, Don, you know, I listened to what you said, and this worked out, and now look at this. Like, that is the greatest thing ever.
Reminds me of when I was coaching youth sports. You know, like you turn to see the kid, a player, whatever, they're like close to doing something, and you're like, listen, if you just make this little adjustment, all of a sudden it just clicks. It's like fireworks.
Yes, and yeah, I mean, you could save, you know, like, listen, you could prevent an injury, you know, increase their whole game performance. It's the same thing.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, on that, you're very much about, you know, you're very involved in the elevator industry from a labor, like a strategic standpoint. You're involved in a lot of associations. You've said many times, just in terms of what I've heard, read, you know, that, you know, safety within the industry, innovation within the industry is something that you're passionate about.
You know, I was always one of those people that, you know, some people just get into their field or their job and their industry, and they just do their thing, and they don't really get in the weeds. And I seem to be one of those guys. I don't know if I'm maybe just a nosy body or whatever, but back when I started my company, immediately I joined the National Association of Elevator Contractors, and I joined the Elevator Conference in New York. The Elevator Conference in New York focused a lot on safety. The National Association of Elevator Contractors is building a safety program. So I always stayed in that lane and always ran my companies with a very good safety program. I do think we probably have one of the best safety programs out there. A lot of people cut corners maybe, and they don't invest in their safety, and then they have an accident, the premiums go up, and they got claims, and they have deductibles, and they're throwing in money and all that. When if you really just shifted, and it's got to be a mental shift where you got to consciously say, hey, this year we're going to spend $500,000 in safety or $1 million in safety.
This break is sponsored by the Advocate Association. Calling all small and mid-sized businesses, the Advocate Association helps you cut costs, improve safety, and grow smarter. Through education, advocacy, and exclusive member benefits, please visit us at theadvocateassociation.org. Our members are saving on things like health insurance, auto insurance, workers' comp insurance, auto fleets, legal, accounting, software, IT services, building supplies, and more. Again, please visit us at theadvocateassociation.org to find out more and to join. I think you have a unique perspective because this is, kind of your second or third go around, in terms of, where you started in the first company, not a second company. I think you're right. It's very difficult to tell somebody starting a business, hey, by the way, let's go make an additional investment, when you're just trying to make ends meet and build a business and get customers, and you might have a loss. You could have. It never happened to me. It never happened on my dime. But there's another expression where there's never time to do it right, but there's always time to do it over.
Yeah.
You've made a mistake. I think a little bit of both, right? Learn from those that have come before you, and it's, the industry is fortunate enough, the folks that are in your circle are fortunate enough that they can reach out to you and say, Don, what do you think? And to your point about mentorship and whatnot, you could save somebody years of anguish if they're able to listen to and heed things that you personally experienced. Because to your point, one loss, one OSHA violation, one dismemberment, right? It's with you forever. It's either in your brain, it's an image you can't get out of your head, it's something that your team doesn't forget, it's something that OSHA doesn't forget. If people who hire you and they look up your OSHA record, they say, oh my God, you had this serious violation back in whatever. They always want to know about what happened. And but again, it's towing that line. I like to say it's like I like to live my life in the HOV land, and for those in New York or area where it's very, very congested, it's a lot more efficient to get in a car with 2 or 3 people if you're driving a rush hour and get that extra lane. And so I think being able to learn from those that have come before us in our own industries kind of help us, save ourselves some of the pain, because when you're trying to figure it out afterward, you're trying to start a new company to get away from the bad press or whatever it is around that one name, that one incident, whatever. So to have the ability to tie in and learn from people that have come before you is kind of a thing. To your point earlier, some people are coachable, some people aren't. Some people need to learn it the hard way. But for those that want to learn before it happened to them, being able to tap into someone and use you as a resource, use your company as a resource, use these associations as a resource can really help cut down on having to learn it. Another thing I know you're very passionate about is philanthropy. And a lot of folks over time have been touched by something in their community, if it's in an association or if it's in their local community or if it's in their house of worship or whatever it might be. You're very passionate about philanthropy of all types.
I believe my first check that I ever wrote out when I opened Vertec Elevator was a donation. I remember it was like $200, which back in '93 it was like $2,000. But I remember writing it out. I don't remember who it was to, but I wrote the check out, and I think that I've always been very grateful for every opportunity I ever had. I'm very thankful, just for being able to, even though I've learned things the hard way and do things the hard way, it's like, I've always been very thankful that, I'm able to do what I'm able to do.
It's just a matter of getting involved. When somebody asked me if I was going to coach youth sports when it was my kids' turn, I said, "You crazy? I'll coach my kids at home." That's what my guys said. And then they said, "Listen, Alex, you happen to know a lot about certain sports. You might be disappointed when your kid comes home and he gets screwed up by the coaches who didn't know what they were doing." I says, "You're probably right. I'm the kind of guy, I want to get it done right. I don't want to do it twice." And I got very involved, and I got so much back from being able to coach all these kids. I saw the sport differently. It helped me in business. It helped me at home. It helped, my family. It helped me coach employees, to be able to see it from somebody else's perspective. And so, being able to be humble, give back, and being able to put yourself in other people's shoes and whatnot. I mean, again, it's a credit to you to be involved in all these associations and all these fundraising opportunities and spending your time that way. So when I look at, kind of some of the other lessons that you or I may have learned, I think I guess I'm wondering for you, what are one of the biggest lessons if it was somebody who was gonna come into your business, maybe the next CEO of Champion Elevator, and you were gonna say, listen, there's one thing you got to know about this business, or one thing you got to know heading into starting or running a company like this. What might that one thing be?
I think one of the real important things is know what you should be spending your money on versus what you are spending your money on. And then you have to try to manage that fine line of being profitable and also retaining a culture that is, a winning team. Because I believe, and I've always started and always have surrounded myself with what I believe are the best of the best people. But that comes at a price, right? And, a lot of times, people that come into a CEO suite or something like that, they basically will look at everything based off of, I hate to say, like the spreadsheet model and what flows to the bottom line, which is very important, obviously. But if you don't manage your expenses and spend them in the right areas, it's very easy for a CEO to take a few line items out of the bucket and say, hey, look at this. I got rid of these 3 things and we're 2% more profitable. And forget about the raises. So we'll be another 1% profitable. And what happens is the spreadsheet looks better, but the culture looks worse, feels worse. People get disenchanted. So, if I was handing the baton off, my suggestion would be really make sure that you focus on the culture and the people, versus all bottom line. CEO's job is, to manage the bottom line with CFO, right? But the reality is you could manage your way into a not such a good position. So that's always been like my theory on that.
And it's a good one, right? Because at the end of the day, I think any business or team or whatever it is, you're nothing without your employees. They are like employees make up the company. And so therefore then the culture of the employees make up really what the end result is for your customers.
So I find myself in a lot of situations where we're actually trying to make very educated decisions on where should you put the money versus where are you putting the money, So let's say, somebody says to me, I want to be just like Champion Elevator. I'm going to go to every event I could. No, every event I hear, I'm going to go to. The reality is, even though we as Champion Elevator are out 5 or 6 nights a week, let's say that's, 200 different charities that we're involved with or organizations. There's another 400 charities or organizations that we've already looked at, vetted, and made a conscious decision not to get involved with. Not because they weren't a great cause, not because they weren't, local. It's just certain things align with your mission and vision that, you have to be selective in some of that stuff. And you can't be fully one way. Like I know people that only try to get involved with things where, I'll give you an example. My clients are property managers. So they'll only do things if it's involving a property manager. And there's like no heart and soul to their decision. Like they don't care about the mission. They don't care about the cause. They only care about who's in the room. And I'll tell you, even when you see people in action like that, you know that they're not genuine. And, people see through not being genuine or not really caring about the cause and the mission. So, I always try when I'm mentoring somebody or trying to help them with a forecast or a future plan, I always tell them to really think about what is closest to them in their personal life, because you are trading your time and your business time for different causes, and that's one of the areas where I think you have to really kind of make a big decision, because you only have so much time, and that's something you can't get back.
You're giving up your time with your family or your business or whatever, both things that really need you. And at the end of the day, if you're not passionate about it, you're also not going to be very efficient where you are.
No.
They're not going to get to the best version. And you mentioned something earlier about mentorship, and it made me think, I think anybody who's been successful or good at anything, if it's a sport or if it's in business, there are always good mentors around. This break is sponsored by Advo-Cator Risk Management. Running a business comes with risks, but you don't have to face it alone. At Advo-Cator Risk Management, we specialize in tailored risk management solutions that help you protect what matters most and lower your risk costs, things like insurance and deductibles. We have saved our clients millions in industries like construction and real estate, transportation, healthcare, service companies, and more. Our team helps you navigate challenges by reducing exposures and having custom solutions for your business. Don't wait for a crisis to find the right support. Visit us at navigatorrisk.com and take control of your risk.
I used to walk home from school in third grade, and I walked past this big greenhouse. It was like a bunch of greenhouses, and it was called Gunther's Greenhouse. And, I was kind of too young to even have a job or anything, but I remember knocking on the door and asking if they had any job openings. It's kind of funny, third grade, we're already doing this stuff, I know. And believe it or not, this gentleman, Bob Gunther, and this lady, Jane, there was another lady named Theo, and they said, well, why don't you come in on Saturdays if you can help us plant? And, I went home, told my parents, they didn't care. All right, yeah, you go into the greenhouse on Saturday, and, we'll see you before. Make sure you're home for dinner. And this gentleman, Bob Gunther, actually, I think he's fully responsible for teaching me how to treat people underneath your leadership, because he was a big guy, big German guy, and he knew his business very well, and he taught me how to take care of plants and plant plants and do clippings and root plants from parts and do stem work, and I got to tell you, there was a lot of time when, like, the third grade kid needs a lot of patience, right?
Yeah.
So it was like he taught me things that he let me have enough runway to maybe, make my own mistakes, but he always came back and showed me how to correct things in such a gentleman-like manner. And, I worked there for 7 years.
Wow.
It's kind of funny. I stayed and I worked, on weekends, and then I worked like a couple of nights after work, school, like on my way home from school, I would work, and then I got a paper route, and I was doing a paper route and that, and so Bob Gunther was a very major influence on work ethic and how to teach people under you and treat people under you. So that was amazing. Then fast forward, I met this guy, Lou Lefferts, when I was a little older. This was after I already had my business. And it's kind of a funny story, because I even told the story over this past weekend. I said I learned a lot of what I know from a garbage man. And people were like, what are you talking about? But this gentleman, Lou Leffert, he worked for the sanitation department, and he retired. And when I met him, he was in his 80s. And he had already had about 20 years of taking the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, all different religions. And I am talking thousands of books and studies and timelines of religion and philosophy and just all stuff. And he was like probably one of the nicest people I ever met, and had so much knowledge that he would run, some people would call it like a Bible study on Wednesday nights. It wasn't really like a Bible study, but it ended up talking about a lot of religion, but it talked a lot about business. It talked a lot about, hey, how's your family? What's going on? And, it was a group of guys, and Lou was like the ringleader. And, whenever we came into, if I was like, hey, I got employees having a problem with this, it'd be a think tank. And Lou would kind of always seem to know the right answer. And, I did that with him for probably 5 or 6 years until he passed away. And it's funny, I met him before I got married, and I remember my daughter was a few years old, and I took her over to meet him, and it was the next morning. I was there at like 9 o'clock at night with my daughter, and the next morning he passed away. I was like, out of the group, I was the last friend to see him. And he was just a guy that so much good knowledge and real honest knowledge came to me that I've used in so many business and personal parts of my life. And he was the guy who kind of taught me more to make sure you're paying things forward, make sure you're protecting, other people, less fortunate people or situations, and to put your family at the forefront of every decision you made. So, one of them was kind of, Bob Gopher was more like that work ethic, treat people right in your business guy. And then this other one was more like philanthropic, pay it forward and do the right thing by your family, It was like, I remember before I got married, we had to go to this retainer. And, it was like a little bit of a joke. I was like, oh boy. But the reality is, like, I just had come off of like a 4-year percana with this guy, Lou, who was like the highest level you could ever ask for. So I had that class down. Yeah.
Interesting. That's like, that was your own version of like, now they have these mastermind groups and these YPOs and things like that where guys will, kind of share what they're going through, and then, a team of people will kind of help from their own experiences, kind of help solve it. And I think, you were fortunate enough to have that, and I've had many, different areas where I've had mentorships both ongoing today. That, mentorship is kind of important. You got to have somebody who you can talk to and about what you're doing, because sometimes you don't even know what you're doing right. You know what I mean? That's sometimes part of being a leader is being willing to go out there and do it and make the mistake, for the greater good. But to be able to turn to other folks that have maybe been in similar situations, it's probably one of the best things you would recommend.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I consider myself extremely fortunate to have bumped into those two guys.
I would say the same thing personally. I think about people would ask me when I was coaching their kids, I would say, I remember my coaches more than I remember, teachers or these other folks. And not that they weren't all important in that moment, but I was really gravitated towards sports. And so if you were one of my coaches when I was in second grade, I remember who you were and I remember what you taught me. And to be able to have good folks around you that you could then pass those things on to your team, your kids, or wherever, it's kind of part of evolution. But mentorship is kind of the key. What would you say is one of the number one or most common, I would say, questions that people ask you if it's about Champion or about the elevator business or about business in general? People come up to you and say something to you. What would be one of the most common types of questions people are asking you these days?
Well, I mean, the big thing, we're hitting our 10th year, but we've been about the same size now for 2 years. But probably the most common question I got associated with Champion Elevator is, how did you grow it so quickly? How did you get so big so fast? 6,000 elevators. The last 2 years, we've kind of taken on more elevators, but we've kind of, I hate to say it, kind of terminated some of the contracts that weren't paying, or not profitable jobs. So the big question I've always been asked was, how do you do it so quickly? Well, how do you do it? And I have to tell you, it's all about surrounding yourself with the right people and building a team. So that's really the big question. That's really the big answer at the end of the day. I did take in some private equity partners, and we did acquisitions, but that also gave us the opportunity to look at the teams of the companies that we were acquiring and take the people that were best suited to be with us. That doesn't mean that the people that weren't with us are not amazing and great at what they do. There's only so much room in the boat, right? And so we took a lot of people that were aligned with the way we operate, and we work, we teach from within, we try and uptrain, and do stuff like that. So I think that'd be my answer for that question.
How to grow so fast, and ultimately your answers were kind of partnering with the right folks and building the right team that really enabled you to really grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And along those lines, a lot of businesses, my business included, your business included, you can't do what you do alone. You need suppliers, you need subcontractors, you need vendors, you need folks to kind of get you from point A to point B. And there comes a time where you can try to be a master of all, but it doesn't really work out. And end up being a generalist at best. And so once you figure out what you're going to be a master of and what you're not going to be a master of, what are some of the things that you use to kind of think about who you're going to partner with? If it's a vendor, if it's a CPA, if it's an attorney, if it's a subcontractor, what are the types of things that you look for from folks that you're partnering with to be able to go do, what you do?
It's being real-time, transparent communications, no matter what it is. 90% of my conversations with my clients are never good conversations. They're not calling me, there isn't a guy that owns, a 40-story building with 30 elevators, and they're calling me and saying, Don, I just want to let you know the elevators are running great today. It ain't happening. Either that or maybe, I don't know, something happened to them. The reality is I get involved with the clients when it's a big situation, and I tell my people that all work with me, from the mechanics to the dispatchers to the supervisors to the managers to the sales reps, don't sugarcoat anything. Tell the people exactly what it is. If a vendor tells you it's going to take 4 weeks for a part, you have to tell them 4 weeks for a part. People think, hey, if I tell this guy I could come and do the job tomorrow, I'm going to get the job. And they do. They get the job, and then the owner of the building realizes, hey, they didn't come tomorrow. Matter of fact, they didn't come all week. Now it's the same amount of time I told the owner, except they already made a shift. They're probably too embarrassed to come back to a company. They could try every other company before they have to crawl back to you. But the reality is not everybody is honest, transparent, and real time. And I think by us being that way, listen, sometimes you're not giving people the news they want to hear, but it's always the truth. And that's kind of what makes you prevail.
There's a lot of things you can't control. You can't control shipping, you can't control the vendor, you can't control manufacturing, you can't control tariffs, you can't control any of these things.
Yeah.
And so to really be straightforward and honest, I think it's a huge point. I think in general, I think it's a lot, things that are missing a lot in today's industry. If it's, if I see it in insurance premiums, nobody wants to give bad news on insurance premiums. Nobody wants to give bad news on losses. You had a loss today, no one's talking about it,
Oh, yeah.
Instead of just avoiding it, get out in front of it.
Yes.
This happened today. This is why it happened. It's never going to happen again if it's within our control, and go from there. I think you learn more from those when things don't go well.
Yeah, yeah.
When they do go well.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, I mean, those are the things that we were looking to cover today, and I appreciate you taking the time and kind of sharing both your journey and your vision and kind of your experience, with us. And ultimately, we're looking forward to getting this to our communities and having folks be able to, tie in and hear back from all the things that you've had a chance to kind of share with us today.